Good evening, chaps. How is everyone? Hope you've all had a good week. Excuse me, this is not quite the first of the week, but it's the first one today. And we've had this weird weather phenomenon here today. There's been this big, hot, yellow ball in the sky. We don't see it very often, but when you do, it's traditional to open a tin or two of this stuff. Cheers. Dearie me. Once again, folks, we're back on the Morrison's export because that's where I went for the shopping this week, and that's not a bad drop actually. It's similar sort of kind of palate to any continental strong lager like Stella or something like that. It's not so bad after at all. So while we're getting settled in, let me just give you a little bit of a heads up about what's coming up on the channel this week. It's tomorrow. There's a bit of chicken picking country going on. Quite proud of that one. I was a bit stuck for something to do for a jam this week, and I was just messing around in Guitar Rig and came up with this brilliant country sound based on a kind of a bit of a driven twin reverb model, and it's absolutely fantastic sound, especially with the Telecaster. And I did a little bit of sort of Albert Lee, Jerry Donahue country type stuff. Evening, Bob. How are you, mate? Ozzy's in. How are you, Ozzy? Evening, Tim. Evening, Scott. And so that's coming up tomorrow. Then on Monday, there is a guitar solo that I've been threatening to do for a couple of years now. I'll tell you what, let's have our usual little guessing game. A couple of years ago, I did the first solo from a particular song. And I said at some point I'd get around to doing the second solo, the outro solo, the fade out solo from that particular song. And it is, there have been a certain number of people who've been saying, when are you going to do that solo? When are you going to do that solo? Well, it's done. That's going up on Monday. Anybody care to guess what it might be? A song with two guitar solos, and the second one is the big fade out solo. And I've done the first one. Send your answers on a postcard, please. Evening, Jason. Is it Born Free by Matt Monro? No, it isn't. Graham's got it. Yes, indeed, Graham. No, I've done both solos from Sultans of Swing. No, it's the cat's out the bag now. It's Comfortably Numb. The fade out solo from that is going live on Monday. And I tell you what, it was an absolute swine to tab out. Just getting the actual kind of rhythmic element of the licks and stuff. It was a little bit like trying to eat soup with a fork, but we got there. Then on Tuesday, due to popular demand, there is going to be a review of the Blue Cat Axiom amp sim package. And Wednesday will be some kind of lesson video. Haven't decided what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be one of these, these entry-level beginner's guide to kind of things that I'm putting up. Thursday will be another one of these videos about, alternatives to a particular type of guitar, or options if you're in the market for a particular type of guitar. And this week we're looking at hollow bodies, big fat rockabilly jazz boxes. That's what's going to be coming up then. And then Friday, we're back to the live stream again. So that's this week on the channel. Cheers, everyone. Daily B, the first one never touches the sides, does it? So what's everyone been up to? Evening, Bob. Bob Contreras. Bob's in. Bob's one of my students. And he's probably... well, I doubt you're on the beer, are you, Bob? Because it's not the appropriate time of day for you, but it is for me. So allow me to feel a little bit smug. Had an eventful week this week, it has to be said. Our cooker, our oven, died a spectacular death last Sunday. It just utterly kind of, just died. Very loudly and very smokily, put it that way. It was, it's so fortunately no kind of damage to the house or anything, but it was a bit dramatic at the time. So we've got a new oven turning up tomorrow. Cheers, John. First one doesn't count. Yes, I have heard that said before. Kim's Workshop, you just made a new video. Okay, well, chuck the link in the chat and we'll have a look at some point. Funny you should mention it, says Ozzy. I just uploaded a chicken picking thingy to my channel this afternoon. Okay, right. Well, as I say, if you've got, if you've got videos and channels that you want to kind of just throw links to in the chat, then feel free. I agree, the funk vid was great, but not anything I want to play. I'll tell you the reason I did the funk video. Well, one of the reasons was after I put the last solo video up, somebody said, can we have a bit of funk, please, John? It's all getting a bit dad rock, isn't it? Well, look at me. What do you want? Comfortably numb after a long motorcycle ride across country today. No guitar for me tonight, but still joining with the beer. Well, that's the main thing, isn't it? That's what Friday nights are for. As I often recount here, I don't really, unless I've had a particularly fraught day or a particularly hot and sweaty day, I don't usually kind of have a drink during the week. But Fridays, oh dearie me, you can't take me beer away from me on a Friday. Oh, you're struggling with your internet, are you, Ozzy? It's I hope it's not my fault. I hope it's not a problem at my end. I'm looking. I've got let me just see. Yeah, I've got a pretty strong, fast connection here. Hopefully you'll get sorted out, Ozzy. Have I seen Dave Simpson's vid about YouTube's ridiculous copyright strike to one of his videos, John? No, I haven't, but it is a familiar refrain, isn't it? YouTube, here's how I see it, okay? It reminds me a lot, working with YouTube, it reminds me a lot of when back in the days when I was playing on the cabaret circuit and playing, working through an agent. The agent was your gatekeeper to the work. And the agent's word was law, basically, and you had to do what the agent said, and you were free to go and try and find work without the agent, but it was a lot harder to do that. So, I've got an account with GoDaddy. I could go and put up a website in an hour that hosted videos, but how much revenue would that bring in? So I just tend to regard YouTube as being like my agent that I work through. And, in the same way as when I was in a band, the agent's word was law. You just have to, I agree. I mean, I've had videos that shouldn't have got copyright strikes on them that have, but I've also had videos that should have had copyright strikes on that haven't. So I tend to kind of, take the rough with the smooth a little bit. Yeah, Dave's been stressing on copyright strikes based on 11 seconds of loosely similar chords. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. If you do a video about a guitar solo, for example, what the two elements that you've got in there are a chord sequence. Legally, a chord sequence, I'm reliably informed, cannot be copyrighted, and improvised licks, which also cannot be copyrighted. So you're not doing anything that's copyrightable, but yet you'll still get copyright strikes. And as I say, it's just part of the territory. The thing is, though, If you look at the longer view, the history of this, once upon a time, if you wanted to have a book published, you had to get a publishing house. They were the gatekeeper. Once upon a time, if you wanted to have a record released, you had to get a record company involved, and they were the gatekeeper. And at the moment, if you want to kind of, make videos that reach the whole world, you need to use YouTube. They are the gatekeeper. But what has happened to gatekeepers in, throughout, the history of media in terms of, them kind of holding sway? At some point, they always kind of become redundant and get bypassed, and maybe that will be the case here. I agree. It is unfair the way the world works, but no one ever said life was fair, and that's just we all have to suck it up sometimes. It sucks, but that's just the way life is sometimes. Have you been to the Ealing Blues Festival, cancelled this year, but they had some great acts, the Blockheads and Mungo Jerry, who's next have played there in recent years? No, it's not my neck of the woods, so I've never been down that way. Peter Shields is in, axe caricaturist. Peter's just opened his first beer. Good for you, Peter. I'm on my second. Evening, Kieran. Where are we? Hey, John, how's the Telecaster build attempt going? I've got a Kent Armstrong type pickup if you need it. It hasn't really started yet. To be honest, it's just I'm an absolute pauper for time at the moment. I'm usually at my desk for 7 o'clock on a morning and till kind of 8-9 o'clock on a night, and it's just finding the time to make a start on any kind of big project. Is that your considered opinion of EE? Is it Aussie? Yes, internet companies, phone companies, they all have they're all much of a muchness. Is the guy who ordered a B-stock Harley Benton TE20 here? I don't know what he thought of it. The TE20, I don't know about B-stock, but just the TE20 is a great little guitar. I mean, it's an entry-level guitar. Thank you, Darren. Thank you so much. That's very, very generous of you. That will go a little bit of way to paying for the curry that's turning up later, because we have no oven, as I mentioned. So it's been microwave food and takeaways all week. There's a lot to be said for that kind of diet. Builds better bodies. Look, there you go. Hi, John. I've been watching for ages now. I mean to ask everyone, what's the tattoo? There it is. There. It's sort of an abstract art thing that's roughly guitar shaped. I wanted a guitar tattoo, but thing with guitar tattoos is there are so many straight lines on a guitar and no straight lines on your body that they always look a bit wonky to my eyes. So I wanted something that was sort of guitar-ish, but would be sort of abstract as well. It's years old. Haven't had it years. Anyone see the marvellous tributes to old Jackie Charlton? What a top man. Ashington lad says it all. I'm sure he was. Very sad that he's now departed, but I've got to say, football, it's a closed book to me, I'm afraid. I just don't it's 22 millionaires ruining a lawn, I'm afraid. Did you break the oven on purpose, John? No. But, I can see how you might think that. Jackie Charlton is a legend in the true sense of the word, and I did not like football. But yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I suppose he came from an earlier age, didn't he? You know, when it was a gentleman's game, and you know, from what I know, from what little I know about it these days, it doesn't seem very gentlemanly at the moment. But I'm with you on that one, Kieran. Power surge, John. Yes, that'll have been it. That'll have been what killed the oven. Yes, it made a hell of a racket. Like it was. There was the that weird smell of cooked electricity throughout the house for a couple of days. He said, I don't know what it was. It was obviously just something, and you know, it tripped all the circuit breakers out, and you know, but anyway, as I say, new one turning up tomorrow, and they're taking the old one away. So, dearie me, this is tasting rather good this evening. Band rehearsal starting again next week. No sign of gigs yet, but it's progress. Yeah, this is it. I used to back in the days when I used to play in bands. We used to Thursday night was always rehearsal night for one band I was in for many years. This band, it was like one of these kind of things where it was still the same band, but it kept changing names, and we kept getting different members kind of leaving and joining and leaving. You know, some people were in the band about 2 or 3 times, and you know, depending upon the kind of gig we were doing, it was either, you know, a rock band or a country band or a blues band, or and Thursdays we used to rehearse in this little local community centre, and it was just a, you know, obviously the pub afterwards, as you do. It was a great night out. Craig's in. How are you, Craig? Ozzy's back. Yes, you got EE sorted, did you, Ozzy? Haven't been in a band since 1992, and I played bass then. Yeah, well, when did I wrap in? The last sort of proper regular gigging, you know, out 3 or 4 nights a week type band I was in was back end of the 90s. And then I did various kind of little dep and sort of fill-in projects throughout the 2000s. Got a band together in 2008, 2009, and that sort of had a lot of promise, but ended up going nowhere. And then I did a few gigs as part of a duo thing about 4 or 5 years ago now, but haven't done anything since then. And, you know, do I miss it? Well, you'd think so, but it doesn't really kind of, it hasn't left a big gaping hole in my life. It's like watching the first picks come back from the Viking lander here. Yes, well, you are watching me in Redcar, which is you know, it's not quite as far as the back end of the moon, but sometimes it feels that way. Thanks, John. As per your advice, got THR10 from eBay due next week. Yeah, great little amp. Great little amp. I use it all the time. Whenever you see any of the videos that I do where I do the solo or like I do something and then I kind of say, then it goes into like the explanation part of it. The guitar tone you always hear on that part of the video when I'm doing the explanation is always the THR10. Because for logistical reasons, it's just easier for me to kind of use that rather than using Reaper and an amp sim. What do you think of Bill Nelson? I always thought he was underrated guitar player and from Wakefield. I got to tell you, Bill Nelson is one of my guitar heroes. I absolutely adore Bebop Deluxe. Sunburst Finish is just a masterpiece of an album, and if you're talking about like a fantastic rock live album, then Live in the Air Age is just amazing. And I know one or two people who've kind of met Bill Nelson as well, and just every report that you hear about people who kind of know him and says what a gentleman he is, so and what a fantastic guitarist. Very, very, very underrated. Any advice on a good bedroom valve amp? I have miserable German neighbours, lots of rules. Yeah, if it has to be a good valve amp at low volume, try the Bugera. Can't remember what it is, but it's a little 5-watt thing that you can switch it down to like 0.1 watt, and it sounds really incredible. Just I can't remember what it's called. Somebody will know, but just look for the Bugera 5-watt valve amp. Just Google that. That left-handed guy, the Aussie, Shane in the Blues, he did a review of it and got a fantastic sound out of it. So yeah, that is just the go-to option, and it's like really kind of old school. You've got volume, tone, and reverb. Those are your only controls, and it sounds incredible. Apparently. Bill Nelson used to live next door to me dad. Great guitarist, bit of a ponce. Really? Well, that's not what I've heard, but fair enough. Speak as you find. The 5-watt Harley Benton one looks okay. Yeah. Well, it's a Harley Benton, isn't it? It's it'll be good and it'll cost pennies. That's what they've built their brand on, really, haven't they? Bill Nelson, what a guy. Met him in a pub at Barnsley a good few years ago, and he was a genuine guy, down to earth, and he even bought me a pint. Well done. I have a mate who claims this is true, and I can't disprove it, but he claimed that Robert Plant once bought him a pint. He was from the Midlands and in Kidderminster, and he saw Robert Plant in a pub and went up to him and asked him for an autograph, and Plant, he said, "I don't do autographs, but I'll buy you a pint." That's it, Peter. The V22 Infinium, that's the 22-watt version. The Bugera V5 Infinium is the little bedroom 5-watt amp, which, as I say, you can switch it down to 0.1 of a watt, and sort of so you can kind of crank the volume, but still have like low power, so you get that driven amp sound at a kind of reasonable volume, or at a neighbour-friendly volume. John, am I a heretic for pre-ordering a Jazzmaster? No, you just have different tastes to me, mate. That's all. I don't like. I've never got away with those Fender offset body shapes, apart from the Music Master, because that was the first ever Fender guitar that I touched. That was when I was playing, when I was inhabiting a world of Woolworth's Top 20s and Columbus or Satellite Les Paul copies. There was a lad at college who had a Fender Music Master, and just to be able to kind of hold a guitar that had Fender written on the headstock, that was just like incredible. It was like meeting the Queen or something. Better than meeting the Queen. But just generally speaking, those Fender offset body shapes, they just, I don't know, they look a bit lumpy to me. I looked for the most expensive guitar on tour, man. It was about 450. It looked quite good, top specs as well. There's more expensive guitars than that on tour, man. you know, I mean, that's probably the most expensive Harley Benton, is it? Great vid on the Super Strat, John. It made me pick up my HM Strat again. I forgot you had one of those, Craig. Yeah. As you know, I used to have one. I had one of the original ones back in. I got it in '89, and it hung around like a bad smell until about '93. It just wasn't my cup of tea, you know. But it was the first ever real Fender I owned. The Vox Mini 5 rhythm has a 0.1 setting as well. Okay. Hi, John. What's the best way to get sustain? Volume. I have a little trick. I did a version of, the Supernatural. I did an album full of covers, which I've never got round to releasing because of it's just too expensive to release it. But I'll put it out there somehow. Might put it up on Patreon. I might put it up on there at some point. I did a version of the Supernatural, the old Peter Green or Gary Moore. He did a version of it too, and there is a way that you can cheat sustain. But it requires a bit of studio trickery. I might do a video about it at some point. But basically, it's all about kind of blending a note into itself over and over again. And, we'll see. Well, I might put that up, but it's a way that you can kind of cheat it in a home recording environment. But, in a live setting, there's only really one way to do it, and that's just volume and hope to... I mean, Gary Moore, or however you want to pronounce his name, as you know, big fan of his, he apparently used to, at the sound check, he used to have a piece of chalk in his pocket for that bend in Parisian walkways, and he used to kind of keep playing that note and find the spot on the stage where he was just at the right point, in the right sort of position relative to the amp, and then just put a big chalk mark on the floor. So it's when I hit that note, I've got to stand there. So it's... I mean, there've been various kind of inventions. I mean, there was the EBO, wasn't there, which is like an infinite sustain device, and then there was the Floyd Rose Sustainiac or something, wasn't it? Yeah, compression pedal. Yeah, you're right, Bob. It does. The only problem I have with a compression pedal is that it tends to just... you get all the noise and everything as well. I bought Gary Moore a pint in Hove. Did you really? Yes. Well, bully for you, mate. I would love to have met Gary. He was one of my heroes. As you probably notice. I keep banging on about him all the time. He's for me, he was the consummate guitarist. He had the shreddy kind of flashy technique, but he also had the kind of melody and the soul and the kind of bluesiness. Would active pickups help sustain? Well, the first guitarist I ever saw using active pickups was a guy called Andy Power. Craig Stamen knows all about Andy Power. And he had a Strat with the MG pickups in it, and he used to get really, really kind of ballsy sustain out of that guitar. I think he used to play at the time through a solid state Fender amp, a Pro 185, which was an old amp from the 80s. And he used to get massive sustain from those, but that was just, it was, again, volume played a part, because and if you've ever met Andy Power or seen him play live, then he kind of, he does like it loud. I have the vintage Lemon Drop Peter Green Gary Moore Les Paul replica, fantastic guitar, I paid $150 for. Do you know what? I'll tell you, that's the only relict guitar that I do kind of every now and again almost pull the trigger on. Yeah, you're right, Craig. Andy is another level of guitar player. He makes everybody else feel like the mere mortals that we are. Fantastic guitarist, really nice guy as well. But yeah, that vintage lemon drop guitar, I keep thinking it's a Gary Moore guitar. You know, it's as close as I'll ever come to owning a Gary Moore signature model. But then I just always it's just the relic finish that always kind of gets me. I just can't get past it. Podrig's in. How are you, Podrig? Wait, what's that, Ozzy? My Harley telly transform my playing. Probably any telly would, but seeing as how that's the one I've got, it did the trick. Yeah, here's the thing, right? I've just done 2 consecutive solos on a Telecaster. And one is the country solo that's going up tomorrow, and the other one is the Comfortably Numb solo that's going up on Monday. Completely different, you know, an Albert Lee kind of chicken picking kind of sound, and a Dave Gilmour sort of sound, and it handled both sounds with consummate ease. It's got to be the most versatile guitar. Still love me Gordon Smith, but you know, you can't beat the Telecaster for versatility, and you know, it does make you play properly. You know, you've got to kind of, the thing about a Telecaster is you've got to really dig in and play like you mean it. It's just, for me, I love Telecasters, as you know. Is the Telecaster to Fender what the SG is to Gibson? Yeah, it possibly is. It possibly is, because it's like the sort of it's the sort of unloved younger sibling, isn't it? Or older sibling in the case of the Telecaster. When you say Fender, people tend to think Stratocaster. I was in a taxi today. I had to get a taxi somewhere and come back again. And, you know, as you do, making small talk with a cab driver. You know, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a guitarist, and, you know, and, oh, right, okay, you know, so the subject turns to guitars, and you mentioned Fender, and even the taxi driver knew what a Fender Stratocaster was. He didn't know what a Telecaster was, though. So there is that thing of, like, you know, the flagship model is for Fender, it's the Stratocaster, and for Gibson, it's the Les Paul. But you know, the Telecaster is sort of the kind of the slight left field option to the flagship model. I suppose the SG is in the similar way. I've never got on with SGs though. I love the sound of an SG. I mean, you know, a lot of my favourite guitarists, Angus Young, for example, and well, Frank Zappa. I'm a big Frank Zappa fan. You know, SG players, but I've never got on with them. It's just everything feels like it's in the wrong place. You know, just like you know, if you've grown up habitually playing Strats and Telecasters, and you pick up an SG and you go to kind of find the 12th fret, you end up at the 15th fret because everything's just further that way. Craig, my telly was always the go-to guitar, but now I've got the Gordon Smith. I'm split. Yeah, how is the Gordon Smith, Craig? Are you pleased you got it, mate? There's another one of my students, actually, a lad called Steve. He's just got a custom order Gordon Smith, like a HSS hardtail Strat. He was showing me it on the Skype lesson the other night. Dearie me, it looks a nice guitar. Dearie me. I can feel the gas starting again, you know, not that gas, the guitar acquisition syndrome. Oh, that's you, is it, Steve? Is that you? Oh, fair enough, mate. I didn't realise. It's weird because, like, you know, often people's usernames on YouTube are different to the names that I know them by. So yeah, all right, Steve. Yeah, the SG I have feels like that. It's it's a bit sort of too far that way. All of the I'm sure once you acclimatise to it, it will become a comfortable guitar because you know you got that slight sort of bevel on the edge, and it's lighter than a Les Paul. You know, if I'm sure I could acclimatise to one if it was my main guitar, but it's just out that. I like the mix of single coil and humbucker sounds, but to be honest with you, I like having single coil sounds. I think you can always fatten up a single coil to kind of humbucker kind of fatness easier than you can get like single coil tones out of a humbucker guitar. It's fantastic. This is Craig about his Gordon Smith. It's fantastic. One of the best guitars I've ever played, if not the best. This is it. They are hidden gems, Gordon Smith guitars. You know, they are. And for the money that you pay for them, I mean, you go on Gordon Smith's website and spec up like something that's like got like a really, really kind of boutique look to it, you know, kind of flamed maple or flamed sycamore. I love the fact that they use timbers like sycamore as well, you know, rather than just all of the usual suspects. You go onto the website and spec something up, you know, stainless steel frets and yada, yada, yada. And you struggle to get anywhere near $2,000 in terms of in terms of like speccing it up, and it's like you think this is still $1,000 less than you'd pay for an off the peg guitar from certain brands. PRS. Always loved Strat type guitars, so I bought the cheap Harley Benton Telly to try out, the £70 one. Don't like it, the shape, not for me, but £70 Strat is better guitar players, great for me too. Well, fair enough. You know, this is it. You know, we all have different tastes. I don't know. I was a Strataholic for many a year. You know, as you know, I keep banging on about that that Carl Perkins rockabilly session TV show that was on in the 80s, and I'm up forever mentioning it in videos. But Clapton was on that, and the Strat tone he got from that was utterly amazing. I thought that was the first time I'd really kind of gone wow at a guitar sound. So from about 85, 86 onwards, I was just into Strats, and then I got a Telecaster, and I thought, wow, this is just me, you know. So that was the moment of conversion, you know. From the thing with a Strat is you got 5 positions on the switch, so you got 5 sounds. I would use maybe 2 sounds out of the 5, but I'll use all 3 on a Telecaster. So it's, you know. Opinions on the Harley Benton kit guitars. Well, there is a build coming up on this channel at some point. I'm going to be doing a guitar build. As I said earlier in the stream, it's just finding the damn time to do it. And one of those Harley Benton kit guitars is probably going to be the basis for that. The rough idea is that I'm going to see if I can build like a high-end telly, like a Richie Kotzen telly or something. But, you know, for kind of working class peanuts kind of money. So I'll reserve judgment, but I mean, there's plenty of reviews out there on Tinternet, on YouTube. So just, you know, see what they say. I mean, it's basically the Harley Benton guitars that you buy that aren't kit guitars are usually pretty good. So basically all you're going to be buying is the unfinished parts that would go into one of those guitars. Yeah, Craig, you're right. For what you paid for it, the PRS or Gibson equivalent will probably cost about 3K. And here's the thing about Gordon Smith guitars, okay? They are hand built. There is not, as far as, well, this was certainly the truth until recently. I don't know, things may have changed, but I don't think they have. There is not a CNC machine anywhere in the Gordon Smith factory. It's blokes with chisels and saws and sandpaper and tape measures and, you know, rulers and stuff that build your guitar. You know, so it's not just kind of being stamped out like a cookie cutter instrument, which is, you know, what some manufacturers do and then charge hand-built prices. I fancy getting one of them Harley Benton kits, but they do not do a left-hander. Yeah. Can I just make a general point here? I mean, the guitar is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the only instrument where there is a left-handed version of it. You don't get left-handed pianos, as far as I'm aware. Everybody else that is left-handed that goes to play a musical instrument just learns the same way as everybody else. And many great guitar players who are, you know, who play right-handed are left-handed in everyday life. Gary Moore, there's a guy, he was left-handed in everyday life. Mark Knopfler, there's another guy, left-handed in everyday life, played guitar right-handed. And here is something that not many people know. Jimi Hendrix was right-handed in everyday life, but played left-handed. The point I'm making is that if you're left-handed, okay, which is the hand that does all the kind of heavy lifting on the guitar? It's your left hand, doing all the kind of twiddly stuff on the neck. And if you're left-handed, you've got all of your strength and dexterity in that hand already. By learning left-handed, you kind of, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps you're kind of throwing away a big advantage. Damn it, I'm late. I wanted to catch the stream from the start, but I got a new guitar delivered today and forgot about it. It's a new guitar day. Good for you, mate. What you got? Joe Strummer was left-handed. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Yeah, I mean, the Clash, you know, I mean, there was a band, weren't there? You know, people talk about the punk scene and everything and, you know, the Sex Pistols and everything, but for me, the Clash were the, you know, the real heroes of that whole kind of thing. You know, they were just a good rock album band. I mean, weren't they really? They were just a great rock band it's interesting because you listen to a lot of classic rock radio stations and you hear a lot of Clash stuff. So, you know, big fan of the Clash. Ever thought about doing a video in the Gordon Smith factory, John? Well, I would if they asked me, or, you know, if they're up for it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, here I am on YouTube. I've got this tiny little channel, about 17,000 subscribers. I don't know that I have enough clout to kind of, you know, just turn up and say, "Can I do a video, please?" You got one of the Spire. You can tell I've had a beer. You got one of the Squire Paranormal offset Telecasters. Oh, dearie me, another offset body fan, are you? Well, at least it's a Telecaster. Good for you, mate. Yes, you can't go wrong with a Tele, even if the body shape is a bit suspect. Have you tried tune track samplers like Easy Drummer? Would be interesting to hear your thoughts. No, I haven't. I haven't tried any samplers. I keep meaning to get into the whole kind of sampler libraries and stuff and all that kind of stuff, because a lot of the music that I want to do has like horn sections on it, and whilst they're a good sort of VST for strings, and I've even got a pretty good free VST for sax that I use, it would be nice to have like some kind of, you know, sample library and using a sampler for something. So maybe that might be something I might try. I always thought Malcolm Owens the Ruts was a better band than the Clash. Saw both bands live a few times. Preferred the Ruts. Yeah, well, fair enough. They were another band that they were sort of on the edges of my awareness at the time. I kind of got into them later, but I don't know. Just the Clash. Just they've, you know, just certain songs of the Clash, like "Should I Stay or Should I Go," and, you know, their version of "I Fought the Law" and "Rock the Casbah." "London Calling," I think, is just an absolute masterpiece. Get the demo free for free. Do a review. Yes, I will, Kieran. Thank you, mate. That switch to a less dominant hand likely contributed to the originality of Hendrix and Knopfler. Yeah, possibly, mate. Yeah. Is there a pedal you can use with amp sims, etc., to switch virtual pedals? Probably. There's probably a MIDI foot controller out there somewhere that will do it. But again, it's like, because I don't play live, it's just because all I've got to do is like kind of just stop, click a mouse, and you know, kind of start playing again. That tends to be what I do. Babylon's Burning by the Ruts. Yep. I had that on a K-Tel album. Remember K-Tel, the compilation albums that used to get? I had that on there, and it was a great song. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat here. I didn't realise I'd gone silent for that long. Couldn't beat the Blockheads back then. Yeah, I mean, I always thought Ian Jury and the Blockheads were, you know, they were a bit like Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. You know, there was that sort of, it was that sort of punk attitude, but with just absolutely stellar musicianship. Ozzy once said Gary Moore had a face like a welder's bench. Yeah, well, this is true. He was never gonna be a male model, was he? Good job he was a guitar player. I didn't know the Blockheads played on "Relaxed" by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Their bass player, yeah, the bass player was Norman Watt Roy, wasn't it? Who's still playing with Wilco these days, isn't he? Wilco Johnson. Sean, say, fancy doing a review on the Orange Micro Terra? I'm on holiday in a couple of weeks, so I can lend you mine. Or if, all right, Sean, you know where I am, mate. Yeah, great. I mean, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, just, you got my email address, Sean. Just ping me an email and we'll set something up, mate. Fantastic. Yeah, Peter Shields, the Axe caricature guy. Yeah, the K-Tel albums. I think I've sparked a few memories there. K-Tel was one of those brands, wasn't it? They made everything. You know, they sold compilation albums that you could buy in Woolies, I seem to remember, or you could get them mail order, but they also sold like those brushes that would get dog hairs off your jacket. John, this is not BS. My mate worked for the Blockheads and they were the best. Yeah, well, fair enough. We all have that claim to fame, don't we? You know, I mean, my claim to fame, such as it is that my dad used to know Mickey Moody, you know, a la Whitesnake. K-Tel albums weren't the albums. No, the albums without the original artists were marketed under the Top of the Pops brand. And there was always like a scantily clad model on the front of them. It was always like covers bands that would play, you know, that would kind of go into a studio for a day and just kind of rattle off the top 40 of the day, and then it would be put out on an album. And Elton John played on them before when he was still Reg Dwight, a struggling session piano player. Yeah, I've never seen that movie, Jason, Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, the Ian Jury movie. Is it good? I mean, if Michael Sheen played it, Michael Sheen can play anybody. Have you noticed? He played David Frost. He's played Tony Blair, I don't know how many times. He's played Brian Clough, and now he's played, you know, I find out he's played Ian Jury. My brother-in-law services Mark Knopfler's pool, and he's a great guy. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen this show on Sky Arts, and it's probably knocking around on YouTube somewhere. Brian Johnson, you know, AC/DC guy. It's, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Tales from the Road or something like that. And, you know, he did he basically just interviews whoever's in his address book, you know. And he did a show where he interviewed Mark Knopfler, and Knopfler came across as a really genuine guy on that. You know, two Geordie lads just having fun and chatting about the old times in the music business. But if you haven't seen it, it's really, really well worth seeing that show. The one that really shocked me was Brian Johnson from AC/DC interviewing Dolly Parton. Yes, I know. And they got on like a house on fire. It was fantastic. The one where he's, excuse me, Mayor drink. Daily me, it's going to get messy tonight. My second lesson in the morning, on Saturday morning, is Rocking Tom, the vicar. He always. It's a bit like, well, how are you this morning, John? Oh, I'm a bit hungover, Tom. Well, it's always a bit like going into confessional on a Saturday morning. But anyway, what were we talking about? Do you ever miss the custom shop guitars you had to sell, or do you think custom shops are not worth the high price? That's a really good question. I miss them, and I don't. You know, because it was like I was on an upward trajectory. Starting in the late 70s, early 80s with cheap copy guitars, and then gradually working your way up the ladder until you can, and then something nicer, and then something nicer, and then, you know, you get to the kind of the 2000s when I was playing PRSs and custom shop strats and stuff. And then suddenly the financial crash happened, and, you know, we had to make economies as a family, and those guitars had to go. And that's when I discovered how good budget guitars are these days. And the big eye opener for me was there was a slight overlap. The custom shop Strat was still thinking, this is a £2,500 guitar. This is a £200 guitar, and I'm struggling. Trophies, if you like, of how I'd kind of, climbed the ladder, as it were. But we've been going about an hour, and it's about time, I think, for my curry to arrive. So I'm going to wrap things up here, and I'm just going to hit this button over here and say,
time, gentlemen, please.
Sorry that the gremlins interrupted at the last minute. It is what it is. Have a great week, and check out the channel in the next few days. Loads of great videos coming up. Thank you for turning up. Have a great week. Bye for now.